If you thought meal prep had to be boring and bland, I'm happy to be the person to disprove that belief. I'm Lisa, and I love sharing my meal prep process because I truly believe meal prep will change your life like it did mine. On my channel, I'll walk you through my meal prep process with all my tips and tricks along the way so you can meal prep the delicious, healthy meals you actually want to eat. I'm so happy you're here and even happier to welcome you to my channel where I hope I can be a resource for inspirational meal prep without the diet culture nonsense that can do more harm than good. I've been meal prepping in some form for over a decade, and the impact it's made in my life has motivated me to share the process with you all. If you're interested in my advice on meal prepping and nutrition, or you're just curious about my own journey and why I love meal prepping, keep watching this video and hit that subscribe button. I post content weekly and I'll always answer your questions in the comments, so ask away. And we'll begin. The first thing that I did in my video this week was getting started on my marinade I'm going to make for my honey harissa chicken. Oh my gosh, this is so delicious. It's so spicy, so yummy. So I started off with an entire jar of harissa. You can make your own if you want to take a shortcut like I did. Definitely use one that's already made. And then you'll add in honey and a ton more spices. I added in chili powder. I used one that's a blend of smoked paprika and chili powder. Really love that. And onion powder, cumin, pepper, lemon zest, lemon juice, and olive oil. This is such a great example of making use of things that you see out in the wild. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that this honey harissa chicken could be considered a copycat for the honey harissa chicken at Cava. Although I think this is just a little bit better, made with love. But this is a great example of that, of when you're, if you're eating out or you're looking at menus of different restaurants, or you're seeing, things on social media, or you're seeing other people, bring back lunch to the office or something. Like, there's no reason you can't just make these recipes yourself at home. You'll save so much money. You'll be in full control of the flavor and taste and be able to make something that you really enjoy versus just the way, a restaurant or a fast casual place would make it. So that's my own that's my own thing. I love making stuff myself and putting my little twist on it. Like, for example, I added tons of garlic in here, and maybe the real recipe doesn't have as much garlic, but I love garlic. I'm a garlic girl, so we added it in here, and I also added some more olive oil and some salt here too. And this one comes together really fast, and it's just packed full of flavor. I mean, look at how beautiful these colors are, the texture. You can probably already tell that this is going to be really a wow. I mean, look at that. Oof. So good, and it tastes so good. Cannot wait for you guys to see what it looks like when it comes out of the oven. Just wait. If you can't wait, you could fast forward through that part, but oof, it is good. So I'm gonna get about half of that, maybe less than half, maybe like a third of that onto the chicken and stir it up because I want to save some of this. I'm not going to use it all right here, right now. I want to save some of it. So as you can see, I'm being really careful to not mix my 2 spoons. I've got my spoon that remains in the marinade and my spoon that remains in the chicken, so I don't cross-contaminate. And also here I decided to add some vinegar here. So I meant to do this the night before I meal prepped and I didn't. So I did it the day of. I did it in the morning and then I meal prepped later in the day. So in order to speed up that process a little bit and let it kind of the marinade do its thing a little quicker, I added some vinegar. So I don't suggest adding the vinegar if you're going to marinate overnight, but if you're going to do it the day of, if you add that little bit of vinegar, it'll really speed things up and help all those flavors soak into the chicken. So I cover my chicken, drank my morning coffee, and then now I'm getting back into meal prep. So now it's a little bit later in the day. So what I have here is saffron. I got this a few weeks ago and I kind of forgot about it, but I am gonna use this I'm gonna make saffron rice. So I added some water here. I'm gonna let this, I crushed it up with my fingers. If I had a mortar and pestle, I probably would have used that instead. But I crushed it up with my fingers and I put it in some water and I'm gonna let that sit on the side and get ready for the rice I'm gonna make in a little bit. So now I'm gonna get started on the side part for lunch for the honey harissa chicken. Along with the saffron rice, I am using frozen broccoli and I'm gonna roast this. It's gonna be nice and crispy and crunchy, and then once it's all done, I'm gonna add some of the rest of that honey harissa marinade, the one that didn't touch the chicken, and it's gonna all come together and just be a little bowl of delicious heaven. I'm so excited. This was honestly such a delicious meal. I looked forward to this every single day. So I'll get my frozen broccoli onto my sheet pan. I've got some olive oil down already, and I'm also going to be careful to break up any large pieces. And I also always like to move my larger pieces to the outside edges of my sheet pan when I'm baking something, because the middle won't get as well done just because of the way ovens are. And if I move these larger pieces to the outside, the chances are that they'll get cooked better than if they're in the middle. So I try to move those smaller pieces to the middle always. I'll top with some more olive oil and some salt and some fresh ground pepper. And then I'll get this into the oven and I'll get started on my other sheet pan. Also, here's my shameless reminder to tell you how much I love frozen veggies and how much less expensive they are than fresh. So I'm doing more frozen veggies on this sheet pan. So I've got some frozen corn and some frozen rice cauliflower. So I'm gonna get both of those onto the sheet pan here, and I could mix them together, but I decided to leave them separate. So I put the corn on one side and the cauliflower on the other, but you can mix it up or use really whatever veggies that you like. I think that's sometimes why I hesitate to share recipes, because I cook for me and my husband too, but I cook for what we like and the flavors that we like. So I don't always love to track and measure and, you know, all these things, because I like things a certain way, you like things a certain way, and that's beautiful. And I love that we're all so different. I think there's definitely there's like some techniques to learn so that you know how to implement or how to like achieve what you like and enjoy. But yeah, using ingredients that you like if you hate cauliflower or corn, don't use them, use something else. Or if you like broccoli but not these ones, then double up on the broccoli. You know, do whatever works for you. And your meal prep has to be made of things you enjoy, or you won't eat it, you won't be happy to eat it. It's not going to be a practice that lasts. And the point of this is really to build a practice that lasts and works for you, not just for me. It has to work for you too. So the other thing I did now is I also added some more olive oil on top and sprinkled some salt. And I always sprinkle my salt, you probably have seen, I sprinkle it from pretty high up, and that way it kind of gets distributed evenly. If I know I'm not gonna mix something up, sometimes, you know, you might mix something up, but I didn't. So these went into the oven and we're gonna get started on the next. So this week for breakfast, part one of breakfast, I'm gonna make strawberry protein French toast, and I learned so much on this recipe. I have so many things that I'll do differently the next time I make this, but this part I would keep the same. So these beauties, I'm gonna get into my microwave safe bowl. I picked one with a little spout. Is that the right word? Spout? So that I could pour easily, because I know that these will have some strawberry juice with them too, some of the natural syrups. So I'll take those, put those in the microwave, take them out, and while that happened, my timer also went off for my veggies to give them a little stir. So kind of move my friends that are getting a little crispy on the outside and just move them around. And I'll get these back into the oven once I have stirred them all up. Corn and cauliflower back into the oven, broccoli out of the oven so I can stir and do the same thing I did to the corn and cauliflower to the broccoli as well. And it was at this point that I was really jumping around a lot. I don't think I said that I put the strawberries into the fridge, but once I defrosted them, I did. So they weren't frozen, they're in the fridge. And now I realized I also needed to get started on my dinner meal. So I'm gonna get my olive oil in my pan, get it nice and hot, and then I'm adding in my ground chicken. And I'll let this keep sauteing while I move on to the next task. I've got out my giant bowl, my Big Daddy bowl. You guys have seen it before. It's actually from IKEA, so that's a fun fact. It was not super expensive, which I love. So I've got my veggies out of my oven. They are so crispy. I definitely was wondering in my head why I didn't use parchment paper. Y'all know I love parchment paper. I don't know why I didn't. So when I was scraping the broccoli off of here, I was like, yep, that was silly. Why didn't I use that? Thanks to my hubby for cleaning these pans. So I'll get my broccoli, my cauliflower, and my corn off of the sheet pan and into my big bowl because I'm mixing up something good. now that my veggies are all mixed together, if you guys remember, I had some of my honey harissa mix left and I'm adding it in here. And just as a reminder, this was not the sauce that was with the chicken. I didn't actually use this portion as a marinade, so don't do that. Don't make that mistake. But I mix that in here and I'll put this in the fridge so I can assemble it later. Meanwhile, I'm jumping back to my ground chicken. I'm draining it using a slotted spoon and I'm putting it in the setting it aside and then putting that in the fridge too. Now I'm setting out some parchment paper. Thanks to my husband for washing this pan. Now I can use it again with parchment paper. Like, yay. Yay for that. So now I'm continuing what I'm making for breakfast, which is I had those strawberries out earlier and I'm making protein French toast, like a strawberries and cream protein French toast. And I learned so much doing this. I absolutely love French toast, and I've been trying to find a really efficient way to make them on a sheet pan with lots of flavor and high protein, even higher protein than some of my other recipes. This was definitely a learning lesson for me. So I've got my my bread on my sheet pan. I'm gonna throw it into the oven eventually, but I stopped to take my strawberries out. These, if you remember, I microwaved them and then I put them in the fridge so they could cool off from, you know, being frozen then warm. And I'm gonna put them into my blender now and get that blended up. The colors are beautiful here, love that. And again, strawberries and cream vibes, so I'm adding some cottage cheese here. And I was really hopeful that this would work really well, and I think it turned out okay in the end, honestly. But I'm just saying this as like a preface to this process that I'm showing you all, just being the actual process that I did and not the process that I'm suggesting. So this was a huge learning lesson for me. I honestly thought about cutting all of this out and just showing you guys the end product, but decided that's not what this is for. This channel to me is also to show you my honest like experimentation and what I'm trying and what I'm failing at, and just being, you know, really transparent and vulnerable with you guys in that way, and authentic, because this is just who I am. I'm not perfect. I'm still learning, and we all are. So I think what I took away from this lesson for me was I should have added a lot more like liquid, so either like water or milk or something. The strawberries and cream batter, we'll say, was really just too thick, and I think that I knew that, but I was just trying to finish this and be done. And probably all of the batter that's in this blender I could have used for like French toast for like 10 people instead of just for meal prep. You know, it was a lot, and it was really thick. So I toasted my bread in the oven because I always like doing that to just so that it holds up a little bit more when I make French toast. And I started spreading it on. I think this is when I realized like, this is probably a little too thick. But I was like, you know what? We're here. We're just going to make it work. I'm not throwing this away. There's nothing wrong with this. It'll probably just take a really long time to cook. And I was right. It did take a very long time to cook. So I poured it on. I soaked them in the batter that was there and flipped them over and tried to spread it around, just to give them, you know, enough on each side. And I even had enough that I had some like, that's what actually my husband and I ate for lunch this day, was the extras of this. Again, I'm not perfect. I'm learning too, and this was a big learning lesson for me. So if you're gonna do this, make your batter just a little runnier. That's the key, I think. And I'm also really open to hearing what y'all think. Do you think the runnier batter would have been better? I'm kind of thinking yes, but I want to hear from you guys too. So I put this in the oven, and again, it cooked for a really long time. I just kept an eye on it and kind of tried to see when the batter was no longer runny. So that's in the oven. Now I'm getting my marinated chicken out of right into the trash can for that cling wrap. I'm getting my marinated chicken out, and I'm gonna get it onto my sheet pan. Yeah, not so pretty, but dang, just wait till you guys see how delicious it looks when it's done. When it's done and out of the oven. I scrape the rest of the marinade out and just spread it out onto my sheet pan, and I'll get that into the oven as well.
And now we're back to my extremely hot pan. Yeah, I let that get way too hot. Oops. I added some extra olive oil in there, but what was left was the ground chicken and the fat that remained from the chicken. I drained the chicken off, but I knew I could use the fat from that to cook my onions. So I also started in this pan. This is for my saffron rice, and I'm gonna take some of my onions. I meant to not put them all in the big bowl, but then I realized I needed some for my rice, so I just transferred them over, and they cooked a little bit in there, but that's totally fine. So I transferred them over, and I wanted to, really like caramelize and brown both of these onions, so I added some salt in here and stirred that up. And I don't know if I said what I'm making yet here. So we know that the small pan is for my saffron rice. Yes, and I had some mirepoix left over too, so I had my carrots and celery I added in after the onion, and so we'll let that cook, and then we'll jump back over to our rice. Our onions look like they're nice and brown, they're sizzling. I'm adding in my rinsed white rice, and I'll get that stirred up. I'm gonna let that cook for just a second here, get some of that extra water out so the rice is nice and crispy, and then I'll add in my water. And don't forget about that bloomed saffron. I'm adding that in now too. I'll give it a big stir, and we'll let the rice keep going. I'll jump back over to my large pan. I'll get my mirepoix mixed up. It's mostly well cooked, so I'm gonna add in my garlic now. I always do it like this so I don't burn it. I'll add that olive oil to the middle, and then I'll add in all the rest of that garlic. And I'm not sure that I said what I'm making yet, but I'm also adding jalapeno because I'm making high protein jalapeno mac and cheese. And guys, this was absolutely divine. The chicken's out of the oven. Look at this. Oh my gosh, y'all, the flavor, chef's kiss, truly chef's kiss. And we'll get started. Now that the chicken's out of the oven, I'll jump back over to my mac and cheese. I'm using the unexpected cheddar from TJ's. I had some trouble opening these packages up, and I'll get this cubed. I definitely should have got a bigger cutting board out just to make my life a little bit easier, but it is what it is. This cheese also comes in a shredded version, but they didn't have that in my store. They only had the block, so I cut these up into tiny little cubes, and I'll get them into my bowl and then into my pan for my cheese sauce. Next, we'll come back and check on our saffron rice. It's looking really great. It smells incredible. We'll get the lid on here. I'll turn the heat down and get the lid on and let it keep going and keep cooking. Then I'll jump back over to my mac and cheese. All of this smells delicious as well. It's looking amazing. So I'm actually going to remove it from the pan here, and I'll just put it with the ground chicken from earlier. I'll remove it from the pan so that I can get started on my cheese sauce, which the first thing I'm doing is adding a little bit of butter, and this will help to deglaze the pan and kind of pull off some of the mirepoix, the chicken, all that stuff. Next, I'll add in some flour. I'm creating a roux just so my cheese sauce is nice and thick, and it's really not that much flour. It's so small and marginal. It just makes a big difference in the overall texture of the cheese sauce. So I'll get that in there, and then once I'm satisfied with that, I'll add in some of my cream, and I'll get that stirred in and incorporated really well. And I really am always so amazed at how quickly a roux comes together when you add in the cream, and all of a sudden it looks like it's a mess, and then it's like thick, and you're like, okay, that we did something here. So I always love that. So I added in a bit more cream once it came together, and you're kind of looking for that texture. You'll kind of notice when it starts to come together to be like what we recognize as like a thick, creamy, sauce. So I'll get my cheese in here and that will melt down. Again, this probably would have been a little easier with shredded cheese or if I shredded it myself, but it's all good. I'll get my saffron rice off the heat. I also put the chicken into the fridge so it could cool, and I'm getting my giant planter off my kitchen island. It's so heavy, but thankfully I am so strong, and thanks to my husband too for custom making that planter for me. I couldn't find anyone that I liked, the right size, the right anything. So he made it. Thanks, babe. So I'll get my container set up and then I'll get my rice in first. So look at that. Smells amazing. A little shimmy because, delish. We'll get that portioned out into our bowls. Now that my rice is all portioned out, I'll hop over to the stove, I'll add my pasta into my boiling water and get that going. Then I'll hop back over to the counter and I'll get my harissa honey veggies into my bowls as well. So I'm going to put that right on top of my rice. Tried to not make a mess, but here I am. I'll get that in, and yes, oh right, the chicken. Definitely need that. Pulled that out of the fridge and we'll get everything assembled here. I probably have said this before. I think I've said this before, but I just keep things, when I'm meal prepping, I keep things in the fridge if there's a long delay, especially because I am filming, for you all. So if I weren't filming or like laying them out like this, I would just put them away in the fridge immediately. So I try to, if I know something's gonna take a little bit longer, or like the chicken's done before the rice, stuff like that, then I'll use the fridge so that everything stays food safe. But also had to give this chicken a taste mid prep because wow, it so delicious. Seriously, make this. If I haven't convinced you already, I'll try one more time. Definitely make this chicken. And why is she smiling, you might ask? Because she's almost done meal prepping, and that is always a happy time. Putting the lids on, putting them in the fridge freezer, that's where my real joy kicks in, and yours will too. So I'll get the chicken portioned out here. We'll be on to the next. And we're back over to the stove. Our pasta's cooked and I'm just adding in a bit of that pasta water to this cheese sauce, so it's just very lightly simmering, and I just want to add in some of that. I love adding pasta water into these sauces whenever I can, so I want the sauce to be thick, but I love the way the pasta water really takes it to the next level. So we'll get that stirred in and then we're going to be assembling all of this. Also, at some point in here, I didn't take a video of it, sorry y'all, but my timer for my French toast went off, so I pulled that out of the oven. My giant bowl is cleaned and ready for its next task. I'll get my pasta that's strained into this big bowl, and then out of the fridge I've got my ground chicken and my veggies that were mixed together, cooked previously. So I'll add that in here, and it doesn't necessarily look beautiful here, but delicious, yes. Beautiful, less pretty right here. So we'll get that mixed together really well, incorporate it, and then I'll add in that cheese sauce. So now that my cheese sauce is in my bowl, this is something I always do to just get every little last bit of the sauce out of the container you cooked it in or something. So I'll add some of my pasta into the cheese pan, and I'll get that stirred around, and it's just really gonna pull out. I can obviously use a rubber spatula and get all the cheese sauce, but I just love doing it while the bowl's still hot. It really like melds the flavors together. So I always do that. Now that this is all complete, I realized I wanted to add one final thing. Look at the joy on this chef's face. I just knew this was going to be absolutely delish. So I'm going to add in one final thing. I'm adding in some red pepper flakes. You guys probably know by now I put them into a reusable, or it wasn't a reusable, but I made it reusable, spice grinder, and I'll add that in here too, just to add just that little more kick. Since I cooked the jalapenos, it's not as spicy with the jalapenos. I probably could have added fresh jalapenos because we really like spicy food as well. So maybe next time I'll do that. I'll add some fresh jalapenos as well as some of that red pepper flake. I'll get these portioned out into the bowls, and we are moving and grooving, y'all. All right, y'all, 2 meals done, breakfast remains. I've got my forever long sheet pan French toast, which in all honesty probably would have taken less time to do it on the stovetop, but I would have had to actively be doing it. So, you know, you win some, you lose some. Here, I learned a lot, and I'm gonna perfect this. Don't worry. It's happening. It's next time I make French toast. I've got a lot of lessons I learned. I'm gonna do it right. So I'll get those out, and I decided to, once I realized, oh, these need to be cut in half, so I ended up putting this one back and then cutting them up and then portioning them out. So I'm adding in some new content here for this week's video too for y'all. So I'm kind of doing what I meal prepped and how I served it. So because I've been eating breakfast at home almost every single morning, whereas before I would have only been eating breakfast on the go at work, I've been experimenting with different ways to meal prep breakfast. So maybe this would be better suited for some of you all. So I've got my French toast here, and I've sprayed some coconut spray and cracked an egg in here. Yes, I dropped the shell in. Of course I picked up the pieces. So I'll scramble it, and I'll add some salt and some pepper here too, and mix it again. And I'm gonna actually microwave this. You could totally do this in the oven, that would work too. I'm putting it into the microwave for only 1.5 minutes. My microwave works pretty fast. So this is how I would serve this on the day of. So I usually flip over the egg to just make sure that it's cooked all the way through. You can see it's all cooked, looking good. So yay, so now I have a savory part of breakfast too. And also for my other side of breakfast, my French toast, I decided to add some cottage cheese, and I also added some hot sauce to my eggs. So I know there's always lots of questions about eating reheated eggs. It doesn't bother me, but maybe it bothers you, so this would be a better fit. And this was a really delicious way to enjoy breakfast. And I'm happy to share alternative ways for meal prep to be used by different people, right? It definitely doesn't have to be my way. I'm just always advocating for you to meal prep. So back to this day that I was meal prepping. Yes, my OCD took over, had to line everything up perfectly for you guys. So we're all done here. Yay, this chef couldn't be happier. She's about to do a happy dance. Thanks again, y'all, for watching and commenting and asking questions, creating this community with you, for you. That's what I'm here for. And
it's not fun. It's not fun for me without you guys. So thank you for watching. Thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you again next week. Make it a great one.